Welcome, goblins and ghouls. Welcome to the first album review that I'm going to do for this podcast. And today we're looking at the My Bloody Valentine album, simply titled MBV. All mini letters, like lowercase. And I'm not that familiar with the band My Bloody Valentine, but I do know that they're from the shoegaze genre or subgenre of alternative music or alternative rock. And I do know that they are actually quite influential. And I'm going to get into some of those basic details. Anyway, as far as this album goes, Rolling Stone named MBV the 23rd best album of the year when it was released, and championed the record as one of the most important releases of the decade, which isn't bad considering that since sometime in the 2000s, many predicted the death of the album itself, and shoegaze alternative rock certainly wasn't a resurrected form that everyone would have predicted, and this band hadn't released an album for quite a long time. So it sort of came out of left field, and of course, the critics were either bound to hate it or love it. According to the review aggregation website Metacritic, MBV received a score of 87 out of 100, which basically means universal acclaim, although the term universal acclaim is a little bit misleading because obviously 87 is not exactly universal. But anyway, that was based on 46 mainstream reviews from music publications and, the weighted average that they gathered from that. MBV was not nominated for the Grammy Award for Best Album of the Year or Best Alternative Music Album, but it was a successful and highly acclaimed record, even if it didn't produce record-smashing album sales or chart position. So for a little bit of background, I kind of hinted at some of this, but prior to MBV, My Bloody Valentine released two commercial and critically acclaimed albums. One is called Isn't Anything, released in 1988, and Loveless, which was from 1991. And that's where they first gathered their considerable acclaim, and of course the influence that they had over the alternative rock scene, especially in helping to establish shoegaze. Again, just emphasizing that little subgenre because that's a big part of this review. Due to a series of musical setbacks, My Bloody Valentine broke up in the late 1990s, and it's reported that they went through problems creatively, sort of a writer's block situation. But anyway, there was a series of live shows that were performed eventually, sometime after that, and MBV was recorded and released in the year 2013, their first album since 1991. So this is not meant to downplay their albums, as they soundtracked plenty of people's lives and were very influential, but the band obviously was not the most prolific, and therefore they probably would not be as influential as humanly possible. In a way, My Bloody Valentine reminds me of, a Jim Jarmusch kind of movie in that, it might be successful and influential, yet you won't hear about it all that much. So my thoughts on the album, MBV, this is basically more the review part of it. Well, I mean, if I'm being honest, I just didn't get into it that much. And this is partly due to the shoegaze genre itself, which I don't think will ever really be my favorite. So, I mean, I could go over the individual track titles here and, look up the lyrics and all that. But in a way, that's sort of my point here. Like, listening to this album, I got about halfway through and I realized I didn't bother looking at what the tracks are called or what the lyrics are because it all just kind of blends together. I mean, it's not like it's a terrible album, But unless you're really fixated upon it, it's not necessarily going to grab your attention. And that's basically why I just didn't really get that much into this stuff. It's not it's not like I hate the band or anything like that. It just like I wasn't interested in it that much. And maybe it's a little bit because I'm used to things like punk rock and metal and stuff like that. But I don't exclusively listen to that sort of stuff either. I do listen to quite a large range of composers, musicians, some experimental stuff, and it's not like I can't listen to classical or jazz either. So I'm actually a pretty open-minded kind of person. But I don't know, this album just didn't quite grab me the way it does some other people. So that's basically it for my review here. I could go on and on about this or that, but that almost be like exaggerating. I'd like have to really dredge up my experience with this album. And really, the point is that there really wasn't that much of an experience with it. I didn't really, I couldn't even hear the lyrics that much. You know what I mean? It's not even that it was hard to understand them, but it's just like this is something you would put on to maybe relax or something like that. But anyway, I am going to end this review now. Let me know what you thought. What you thought about this album, what you thought about this review, etc., etc. Try to be smart about it. And yeah, all right. Have a good day.